The way that this is explained is essentially when you have certain behaviors or certain things that you do that are not in alignment with what you desire, what you want for yourself, to be healthy, to be a good parent, to be, whatever it is that you define. And then you have these behaviors that essentially are not supporting that. It's because there's this system of self-protection. Call it an immune system. And just like your immune system, you have this way that you operate to protect you from bad things happening. And so when you go and make the resolution that you're going to go to the gym 5 days a week, or you're going to eat healthy, or you're going to give up snack food, or whatever it is, or something, a business goal that you have, there are actions that you're going to need to take that unconsciously feel unsafe. And so what happens is you unconsciously go back to your comfort zone in order to stay safe. And so we call it an immunity to change. It's much like an autoimmune disorder where this thing that was supposed to keep you safe actually starts to self-sabotage. It starts to attack itself, just like an autoimmune disorder. Hey, you leader, entrepreneur, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself, we know you're a visionary business builder, wealth seeker looking to combine a passion for doing good with leading consciously. It's time to shift from a traditional focus of pure wealth accumulation to one that integrates well-being and fulfillment. This is the Conscious Edge podcast, and I'm Alecia St. Germain, entrepreneur and coach. Along with my friend and wellness advocate, Jonathan Duggar, we're diving into what it means to embody radical self-acceptance while still evolving to lead with compassion and kindness. We're sharing our own experiences and expertise as we unpack imposter syndrome, perfectionism, procrastination, and all the other things that lead to burnout and keep you from experiencing pure joy, business growth, and maximum impact. This is a safe and supportive space to explore what it means to be a human creating wealth and building a business. You're here for a purpose, and it's time to shine your light. So here we go. Welcome back to the Conscious Edge podcast. I'm Alecia St. Germain. I'm here with Jonathan Duggar, and it is almost New Year's Day. New Year's 20. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
2025, baby. Wow. How did that happen?
Oh, so fast.
So for those of you who don't know us, who are tuning in for the very first time, welcome. So excited that you're here. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you tap the follow button. We come out with new episodes every single week, and we talk about everything under the sun that has to do with building a business, creating wealth, and being a human being. So that pretty much encompasses. That's right.
So many things.
So many things. So in my company, I work with women, mainly entrepreneurs and real estate investors, although any men that are interested in doing this kind of work, doing the kind of coaching work that I do work with some men as well. And so I help with any kind of burnout, and a lot of the women that I work with are really interested in doing more in the world. They want to create an impact. They have businesses that they have built, but they really are taking it to the next level. And the way that they're doing it isn't sustainable. They're wearing too many hats, doing too many things, and it's creating a level of burnout. Jonathan, I actually got a question recently of, what do you do and how do you help people?
Oh, that's a great question. I still do a lot of work in corporate settings, leadership development, compassionate leadership training, management training, sales related training, that type of thing. But over the past probably 10 years, I've seen a fairly large shift into helping companies and individuals live a balanced life. And sometimes that's primarily business related initially, but often the imbalances become very apparent and they're more related to relationships and communication skills and following a wellness approach to a business or life. So I've started telling people when they ask me that question, my elevator speech, that makes me think of Diane Bowman whenever the elevator speech comes up, that, is I try and help companies, groups, and individuals live in a more balanced way, be healthier and happier, and finding joy in every day. Ooh, that rhymed. I just wrote a haiku or a poem.
And so if you're just joining us, sometimes we are a little quirky and we just have these conversations.
I promise I'm not hitting the New Year's eggnog. I promise.
Yeah, right. What is in that teacup, right? So do you work with people more individually or in group settings? Who would hire you?
I do still do some individual coaching, and I keep my licenses current. So I still do some therapy, and mostly pro bono, but I still do some therapy and some things more on the assessment side of psychology. But I would say since COVID, I've done more individual work than I have in quite a few years. And I'm fairly selective in terms of time commitment for individual work, but I do still do some of that. Also, I guess I should mention, I do some business coaching as well with entrepreneurs and small business owners that are trying to grow. So looking for ways to help them grow in a efficient and profitable way that aligns with who they are and what skills they bring to the table, what experience they bring to the table. But I do still do some of that.
Which makes perfect sense. And we're doing more with retreats now and taking some of the things, because you and I are so aligned in what we believe in what business really should look like, and not to should on people, but what we believe it should look like.
Redefining success. Yeah. Redefining success.
Yeah. Redefining success and wealth, and doing it in a way that aligns to life. So as it is New Year's, and some people set New Year's resolutions. I've seen recently some people don't set resolutions because there are some people who actually realize that that's not actually super effective, the way that they set resolutions. And we'll get into why that is. But I've also seen people come up with their word of the year. Have you thought about what your word of the year is?
I haven't, but I could probably say that it's not the word related to the word balance.
Balance. Yeah.
Yep. I'm personally and professionally making a lot of changes. So I'm trying to do that in a very mindful and balanced way. Maybe it's 2 words, mindfully balanced. Mindfully
balanced. Yeah. So I think for going into 2025, I'm going with strategic.
Oh, I like it.
Strategic. So it's, there's an element of mindfulness for it for me, and being strategic is, and I think I've always been strategic, but laying things out in a way that I had this thought the other day that I would love to be the kind of person that if you knock on my door, I will put a cup of tea on and we will talk for as long as you want to talk about whatever you want to talk about without me freaking out about everything I have to do on my to-do list. And I was like, okay, so what would it take if that was to be true? And so this is about intention setting, right? And having a vision. Mm-hmm. And I would be strategic, and I would work at the kind of person who works ahead, and the kind of person who there's so much space on a project that I'm working on. I'm not leaving things till last minute, that if someone knocked on my door and I was to put a cup of tea on and we talked for as long as you want, and you never felt like I was rushing you out the door, had something else to do, is because I was ahead in what I was doing. So that's my reason for wanting to be strategic. and my why.
I love the why. I think that I see a whole podcast in something like that because, strategic maybe is also about being flexible and adaptable and letting go of the plan.
Mm-hmm. And having enough space to do that. That's really about what it's about creating. It's just it's a way that I'm approaching it. I have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, I could be a hot mess in 2025. I don't know. That's like one of my favorite words, hot mess. Right. Even though I don't necessarily think that it's just, I don't know. It's just an energy, I guess. It's a vibe. It's a vibe.
I don't think that's necessarily a good theme for your 2025.
No, hot mess. No. Dumpster fire. No.
Oh, man.
So one of the things, let's talk about New Year's resolutions for a second, because they are incredibly ineffective.
Let's even go
before that. Okay.
Why do we make resolutions? Why do we make New Year's resolutions? Where do you think that comes from? I have some ideas. Now, I just now thought of this, so I don't have my notes on this. So why do you think we make New Year's resolutions?
I would guess
that's something I can even remember as a little kid hearing about.
Yeah. Yeah. This is totally my opinion. I have no research. If you asked me that off the cuff, I'd have to say it comes from a new start. It's a new start to a new year.
Yep. Thought that.
And it's hope. It's like a hope that there's something better available than what is right now.
I like that. I'm also going to add I'm not going to say negative viewpoint of that, but I think this is accurate. Just now that I'm actually processing this, I think a lot of our New Year's resolution, you don't see the same sort of resolution like structure in other countries, at least that's been my experience. Like there's traditions around New Year's, like you eat grapes for good luck but it's more general and joyful and sort of party oriented. I wonder if because this country and culture became industrialized so rapidly and so in such a hardcore way and often revolved around times of war, that there was this sort of corporate culture is at the first of the year, we're setting all these standards of what things look like in a very specific way. Our milestones and we've seen if we're on track to meet these particular bottom.
We do like to measure things. Measure things.
I remember as a little kid in school, like an activity we did was coming up with learning how to spell the word resolution or something, which I have trauma around anyway, because I was a horrible speller, still am. So, that was a long word to spell, but we had to make a list of our resolutions, and the teacher wrote on the board what some common resolutions were. So we could borrow from those because I think we were like fourth graders or something. But very early on, in those formative years, being primed that this is something we do at New Year's, but no information around what we're actually supposed to do after. Yeah, exactly. The whys and then the how to make resolutions actually stick.
So common resolutions: lose weight, go to the gym 5 days a week, better health,
less sugar in your diet, less alcohol,
be a more patient parent.
Learn a language. I hear that one all the time. I'm going to learn a new language this year. I'm going to learn to play an instrument this year.
Mm-hmm. So why do resolutions fail? And here's what my training, and this is really where Jonathan and I, one of the first, I don't remember, we went to a training called Immunity. It was an Immunity Change Facilitators
Alecia and I went to Harvard. Alecia and I went to Harvard.
You're so funny. So Immunity to Change is a methodology, a coaching methodology that I discovered. And it talked specifically in the article about why we do not keep our New Year's resolutions. And so it made a ton of sense to me. Jonathan and I ended up going to these two Harvard professors that created it. You've heard me, if you followed the podcast, you've heard me talk about it before. So we went to Cambridge and we sat in this facilitators workshop to learn how to map out why change is so hard. And essentially at New Year's, we want to do something different. We want to change things. And so we come up with a new goal, a resolution, and then I think most people fall off within the first couple of weeks.
90%, depending on which study you look at, between 80 and 90% people fail within 30 days.
Within 30 days. So the way that this is explained is essentially when you have certain behaviors or certain things that you do that are not in alignment with what you desire, what you want for yourself, to be healthy, to be a good parent, to be, whatever it is that you define. And then you have these behaviors that essentially are not supporting that. It's because there's this system of self-protection, call it an immune system. And just like your immune system, you have this way that you operate to protect you from bad things happening. And so when you go and make the resolution that you're going to go to the gym 5 days a week, or you're going to eat healthy, or you're going to give up snack food, or whatever it is, or something, a business goal that you have, there are actions that you're going to need to take that unconsciously feel unsafe. Like they're not going to meet a core need that you have, whether it's being a part of a group, or it's being seen as stupid, or being seen in a certain way, a whole list of different things that come up, not being able to connect with people. And so what happens is you unconsciously go back to your comfort zone in order to stay safe. And so we call it an immunity to change. It's much like an autoimmune disorder where this thing that was supposed to keep you safe actually starts to self-sabotage. It starts to attack itself, just like an autoimmune disorder. And so the creators of this, I think where I wanted to start with this, the creator of this, one of them, Bob Keegan, actually used this process, or this process came from weight loss. And what he had discovered in the process of mapping out why he had an unhealthy connection with food that caused him to be overweight was that he did not believe that there were other ways to connect with people that didn't involve food. And so once he taught his brain, and once he looked for other ways to have connections with people that he loved that did not involve food, and he learned that he could create connection with people without food, he was able to lose the weight. He was able to stick to the things that it would take to live a healthier lifestyle. And so they took this then into the corporate environment and doing change facilitation. And then I discovered it and I was like, this is the thing that entrepreneurs need. So I'm going to take it and go into the entrepreneurial space with it. But it's very much used in the corporate space.
Yep.
But that's why, it's hard to change your behaviors, and why sometimes when you make these resolutions, if it was easy, if it was something that you didn't have a belief around that something bad would happen, you would just go do it. You just go pick it up and start doing it. Like last year, my husband and I decided in 2024, we were going to become flossers, like teeth flossers. And so I know it's funny, right?
Party.
Right? Because we weren't raised like that. And so I know.
I'm sorry, that caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that. And I just got this picture of you two flossing in front of the mirror, like with some music in the background. We're happy flossing. Set the timer for 3 minutes.
It's not teeth brushing. It's like, anyways.
I don't even know how you incorporate the habit of flossing. So
Well, here's the thing I was going to say is a lot of the things that we traditionally do in order to start a new habit, like they say 21 days, you can start a new habit. And so we used accountability, the two of us, like, hey, we're going to floss. We're flossers. So like we used accountability. That is very effective when you don't have a big assumption that says flossing your teeth is dangerous.
Right.
I didn't have a big assumption around it. So we very fast picked it up. And then we noticed, this is where your mindfulness comes in. We noticed that if we brushed our teeth and didn't floss, it didn't feel clean. So we were tuned into the fact that we actually felt better when we flossed our teeth. And so then it became, I can't floss my teeth. Like I can't not floss my teeth because it doesn't feel good.
Or my mouth won't be clean. Yeah.
Or my mouth won't be clean. Yeah. So it was really easy to pick up that kind of habit because we didn't have a big assumption that said it was unsafe or that bad things would happen if we do it. And so often I see in coaching programs, like they use accountability. They use like, they say, manage your mind, like you got to manage your mind in order to reach your goals. What things have you heard around reaching goals? Strategies for reaching goals?
So connecting them to core values, that's a big one, is understanding why we want to do this particular thing. And also drilling down, similar to the process with immunity to change, drilling down into what the actual shift is and what it's for. So it is related to our whys.
Well, so I'm talking about what have you heard that people use that is sometimes ineffective in goal setting?
Oh, ineffective. That, setting sort of the general goal setting stuff that we talked about before, defining the goals, using the SMART acronym to define our goals. And there's some utility to that. But again, if you've got these other things in the way, one of the things that happens I see is a lot of people are kind of following a fad with a goal setting. So a particular diet maybe, or a particular eating pattern. I'm going keto for this year. So they set it and they think it's going to be effective because it's popular. That's not related to effectiveness at all for the individual. For a social shift or social fad or whatever, maybe, on Instagram, so, maybe.
I've also seen people use negative reinforcement. Like if I don't do this, then I have to give money to a charity that I hate or don't support. That. I've actually seen people if I don't go to
putting money in the swear jar.
It's putting money in a swear jar. But even more than that, if I don't exercise 5 times this week, I have to give money to a charity I don't support or believe in or
even know anything about.
No, staunchly hate their values, because there's that kind of thing. The fact that I'd have to give my money to something I don't support and don't believe in, so using negative reinforcement. And so all of these hoops that people go through. And I want to say that some things I think are positive and effective, like accountability and managing your mind and putting your goal up on your mirror, doing some of those things. They are effective as long as
up to a point. Yeah.
You don't have something that says this threatens my way of being.
Yeah. Yes.
And you don't even know it's there. These are unconscious. And so I think one of the things I really wanted to say today is if you are setting a New Year's resolution and you find in 3 weeks you are not doing it, you likely have an immunity to change. You have something that says this is unsafe for me to change. So rather than beat up on yourself about it, you either decide if you really want this goal, then get underneath there and figure out what am I believing to be true about the world and the way that I exist in it that makes me achieving this goal unsafe. Or maybe let it go. Maybe you want to stay safe. Maybe you want to stay in your comfort zone. And neither one is wrong. Sometimes when people go through and they work with me in immunity to change, we get to their big assumption. They go, I don't want to test that. I don't want to change that. I want to hold that belief as true. It feels safer for me. And we say, okay, that's okay. But your goal and your big assumption, the other thing you believe, can't coexist. So you've got to refine what the goal is. And it's not about being right or wrong. So
say that again, because that's hugely important.
Your goal and your big assumption, which your big assumption is the belief that you hold that says, if I do this, I won't be safe. To very oversimplify it. If I do X, then bad things will happen. Whatever, you fill in X and you fill in bad things. And so your big assumption and your goal cannot coexist. Something has to be refined or rewired in that belief system in order for you to easily achieve your goal. Or you keep that belief system as true and you let go of the goal, but you stop making yourself wrong for not being able to achieve it. And it's about alignment. And we talk a lot about alignment, right? So it's just about getting your big assumptions. And by the way, we don't just live without big assumptions. We just grow them. We change them. We adapt them as we play a different game. It's not about one right way, or it's just a refinement process. So that would be one thing I wanted to say on New Year's resolutions is like, fine, have them, go after them, get them, but also don't beat yourself up if it's harder than you thought.
It's also a perfect opportunity to start practicing mindfulness, because learning to assess failure or the beginnings, the process of failure, because failure quite often is a process. Like we start out at the gym 5 days, then we go down to 2 days, and then we justify not going and we'll walk in the afternoon or whatever it is. We get off our goal in increments quite often. It's not a one or done. Utilizing mindfulness to step back without judgment and say, where's the disconnect? And how do I do better? How do I do different? How do I make a change? And often that is asking for help or insight. Mm-hmm. And that's what Alecia does with so many of her clients, is something called a map. An ITC map, a community to change map. And mapping is you could speak to it much better than I can, but it's the beginning of a process of discovery and uncovering, because it is a multi-layered thing that often holds us back from very important things that often are very important to us.
Yeah. Part
of our core value, part of our why that we're still not reaching.
And I'm going to link in our show notes the previous episodes that we have done around, like, I think we did an episode, something like why your goals are sabotaging you, or something like sabotaging your dreams, why your goals are killing your dreams, or something like that. And we did a whole lot of, we had several conversations around goals and intention setting, and that I think are really relevant to today's conversation. But I love what you just said about failure almost being the starting point. Mm-hmm. So when we think about your New Year's resolution or whatever it is that you're up to this year, the first time you don't keep your commitment, or that you fall off your resolution, what if instead of that being the end until next New Year's, what if you actually did use mindfulness and ask yourself, ooh, what got in the way? What am I believing to be true about this situation? What else could possibly be true about this situation? And how do I do better going forward? Because I know one of the things you mentioned was how unrealistic sometimes these resolutions are. Mm-hmm. Speak into that, please.
We often set things that are not obtainable based on our current context of life, what our job, our family, existing commitments. So we start way too big, and we don't think about things it's like all or nothing sort of approach. And that's where drilling down into what's really important to us. So people, will think of, okay, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. Well, that's not really their goal. That's not. The resolution should look more like, I want to live a healthier lifestyle. Now, how do I go about that? Or you drill down into, why do you want to go to the 5J? I recently was working with a client of mine that was trying to make some changes related to diet and exercise. And everything he was giving me was more related to superficial things because he was avoiding trying to get to the core. And we finally did get down to what was real. And the real reason he wanted to be fit was because he wanted to be able to chase his grandkids around and not get winded and look like an old man and feel like an old man. He wanted to stay in the moment, be joyful with his grandkids running around in the backyard. Like, that's awesome. So let's talk about a targeted way to do that. You going and lifting weights and going to a martial arts class are probably not helping you maximally for that. And it's not realistic to your schedule. So people set these very high expectation, unrealistic goals that aren't in alignment, are the best alignment with what they're truly after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's powerful when we put it back to intention and thinking of all the ways that it could be achieved. And that's when I say, like, what else is possible? How else can this be done? And I oftentimes see people, like, there are some people who don't like to go to the gym. There are some people who can't not go to the gym. I am not one of those people. I do not love to go to the gym. I do not like to work out. I always feel cruddy, like the whole marathon thing. I'm like, my husband's so cute. He goes, marathons for me are like doing two things I don't want to do: running and paying to run.
Running excessively long distance. I used to do that. So I can relate.
But here's the other thing I learned. So we did our DNA, our whole family's DNA with the DNA company. And so we pulled our DNA from a perspective of how does your body work and process oxidative stress and vitamins and minerals and all this stuff. And what I learned was my body actually does not process oxidative stress well at all, which is why when I run, I feel horrible. Like, I need to go take a nap and it's going to ruin my day. I don't get up and go, oh, I'm going to go for a jog and I'm so energized and I operate better. My brain does physically goes, let's go take a nap.
I'm time to shut down.
So it was recommended for me not to run, to actually have a majority of my exercise be more in the weights and strength training, as opposed in a very small portion of it being cardio. And at that it only let my heart rate go to a certain level. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. So when you mentioned like things based on fads, instead of what intuitively, I'm not saying you have to go pull your DNA to know how to work out, but I'm saying intuitively, though, you also know what makes you feel good and what doesn't make you feel good. And so setting these New Year's resolutions based on what you should be doing societally makes no sense.
Exactly. But that is one of the most common approaches for, the fourth grader picking their list. Here's the common ones. Let's put them on the list.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say is whatever you pick as your New Year's resolution or your goal or whatever it is that you're working on, this is from an energetic standpoint. So do not be surprised if you are given the opportunity to practice what it is you have set the resolution around. So perfect example, I have heard that you want to be a more patient parent. And whatever you wish for or set your intention on is exactly what I believe you're going to be given opportunity to do. So I don't think it's going to make your year easier to wish to be more patient, because you're going to get a lot of opportunities to be patient.
Exactly. It's how do you acknowledge and utilize those opportunities to be as effective and as positive, as helpful as possible.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make mention of that when you're thinking and reflecting. Words have so much power. You're big on neuro-linguistic programming, but energetically, it's just something I've noticed. It's not something I can necessarily explain. But have you experienced that? Whatever you focus on is what you get a lot more of?
Oh, yeah. There's, the law of attractions is related to that. And, again, that's one of those things that's been turned all magical and fluffy, but it's physics. So when we are applying energy in certain ways, we notice more, our perceptions change, our context changes, people around us shift. And I like to think of it as the universe handing us an opportunity or a gift to, or a challenge to learn more, grow more, highlight more.
Yeah.
Sometimes in an uncomfortable way.
Yeah, for sure.
Didn't you do an episode on the ITC process or?
Yeah, I'll link it here. It was one of the,
Okay.
I think it was like episode 5, why we self-sabotage, or maybe it's 6.
I have a feeling that a lot of folks are going to want to dig deeper into what immunity to change and what that's all about.
Yeah. So that's in episode, it's 5 or 6. I'll make sure it's linked in the show notes so you can dive into it a little bit more. But yeah, so I think what I'd leave people with, or what would be something that you want to leave people with, Jonathan? I always take the last word.
Well, just you can't set realistic goals without understanding your core values. So being brave enough, making enough space and time to do some self-work and understand better what drives you, and asking for help from a coach or a therapist if needed to do that, because it can be challenging. But if you really want to make lasting change, positive change last, then it has to align with your whys. It has to align with your core values. And I think that all of us should look at this, a new year, as a fresh start, not from a resolution standpoint, but from as a whole year's worth of opportunity to do better, to grow better. And I'm trying to hold myself to that, where it's all an opportunity. Even the crappy stuff, it's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to learn and be mindful in a mindful way that steps out of judgment and focuses on growth.
And we don't grow in those moments where everything goes right. We grow in the moments where it doesn't.
Exactly.
That's the thing, is if there's just, I don't know, anything worth doing usually has a challenge around it. So it's that grit and resilience, and yeah. So be mindful of how you set your goals, right? Be mindful in how you're setting not your goals, your resolution. Mindful planning and how you set your resolution.
And mindful balance.
Yeah. You know what and today is my anniversary. Did you know? You know that, but
Happy
I mentioned that
anniversary.
last week. Thank you. We're recording this completely a whole month prior to this, so it's very strange for us to like pretend like, oh, it's my anniversary today.
Yeah, I should have wore a little like party hat and had one of those noisemakers just to try and get in New Year's mode.
So I am at this moment that you are maybe potentially listening to this, getting my hair cut, getting ready to go out on a date with my husband.
And we will be in the final planning stages for our retreat in terms of logistics, and which we're super excited about. That's going to be a powerful start to our new year.
Yes. I'm really excited about that. And I love how tailored it is to the people who are there. We've actually collaborated with the attendees as to what it's going to look like. We had some themes, but we actually collaborate with the attendees as to where do they really want to dig deep and what do they want it to look like. And so originally when we started planning the retreat, I was a little like, oh, we have to have it all planned out in order for us to be able to sell it. We got to enroll people in what we're going to do. And you really got me on board with the idea of, well, let's kind of have a purpose, a theme, an intention, and then let's let it be fluid enough that this retreat actually gets to be planned for the people who are in the room.
Yep. A collaborative experience.
I think that's really special and not always the way that it's done. So I think it makes it really, really special. So
I'm super excited about it.
And I should feel like I should say, if you would like to be notified of what any future retreats that we have, please go to consciousedge.com/waitlist. and put your name on the wait list. We fill our retreats from the wait list first before it's ever released to the public. So we find that works well. So with all of that being said, sending you so much love. Happy New Year.
Be well, everybody. Happy New Year. Woo!
Woo! Thanks for listening to the Conscious Edge podcast. Make sure you subscribe and take a moment to be kind and share this episode with someone you care about. Leave a review to help us bring more compassionate leaders building businesses and creating wealth to the table. And for show notes, head over to consciousedge.com/podcast. This podcast and the linked materials are presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes and should not be taken as personal or medical advice or any kind of mental health treatment. Please consult a medical or mental health professional if you feel you need such services. Please be advised that all investing and entrepreneurial endeavors involve risk, and the use of the education and information on this podcast and linked materials is at the user's own risk.